Okay, our next agenda item is 10.4, Notice of Motion, removal of Mayor as ex officio member on all council committees. Councillor Marshall. The first recommendation is in regards to receiving a report. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Charles and Councillor Marshall. Would either of you like to speak to receiving a report? Would any other member like to speak to that? If not, all those in favour? That's carried. Councillor Marshall, would you like to move your motion?
Yes, thank you. And before I start, before anyone says this is a bit of a below-the-belt way of doing this because the Mayor's not here, this was decided and discussed with the CEO before I knew that he was taking leave. So it wasn't to try to do it behind his back without him being here. It was just when I discussed it with the CEO, it was quite clear that he would have had to have vacated the chair anyway. So he wouldn't have been in the room to discuss it. So it really doesn't. That's what we've got now. I'd move that the Council resolve to amend the terms of reference on all Section 41 committees of Council and remove the membership position of Mayor as ex officio, and that all committee membership listings and terms of reference be updated accordingly. Now, the reason I'm saying this is based on what I said before about the comments that I got from 3 members of the voting committee that they hadn't agreed with a position that the Mayor took in the committee in his role as ex officio, and that he was very intense about the way he was pushing this particular matter of the pontoons, and that they had numerous reasons why they didn't support that, but they said that they actually felt reluctant and they were nervous to go against him because they thought that they would be basically incurring the wrath of the Mayor for not supporting him. So essentially they felt intimidated, and I don't mean that the Mayor was intending to intimidate them, that's the way they felt. And I just think we can't have people on committees who are feeling that way because one particular person is there and that particular person is on every committee. The position of ex officio of the Mayor, my understanding of that is that this was an issue that is part of the Local Government Act, that the Council can resolve that way. And that's because the Mayor should be across all the issues that the committees are discussing, and so making the Mayor, he or she, ex officio, puts them on those committees and they can take part in those committees. However, there's no reason why they can't be informed by sitting in the gallery like the rest of us would have to if we went to one of these committee meetings. And I think finally the point that I would make is that I've never really believed that having the Mayor being ex officio, whichever Mayor it is, on all committees is fair, because the Mayor gets a say on every committee that the other elected members don't. And you know, of course, that I don't support Section 41 committees anyway, and I'd rather the Council just makes all these decisions and goes through all these issues. We may as well do it from the amount of time we spend dealing with committee minutes anyway. So I would ask you to support this. I'm not trying to make this personal, I'm just trying to be pragmatic, and I do believe that we can't have people feeling intimidated. And as I say, I reiterate, I'm not suggesting the Mayor's doing that on purpose, but it happens. So please support this.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Can I please have a seconder for Councillor Marshall's motion? Andrews?
Yes, I will support this. I've long believed it is more appropriate for the Mayor to be ex officio. The reality of the situation is when the Mayor sits on a committee as ex officio on that committee, whether it is true or not, it does give that position that the Mayor holds an overt or invert sense of influence on that committee. The reality is that many people, exactly as what we've heard tonight by Councillor Marshall, do feel that the Mayor, because of that position, and it's because of the position, not the person, has that knowledge and tends to sometimes give that influence to the committee that it should go this way or it should go that way. And it has to be a very strong committee and committee people or person that, shall we say, goes against the trend. As an elected member, most certainly he can still attend, as we all can, all meetings of council, all meetings of committees. But the overt position of power, in my view, is one that is wrong. What we have down here, the Mayor should be able to be appointed. And indeed, if he wants to nominate for a particular committee, then he should do so. And it should be by the ballot, the same as all of us. Indeed, at the bottom here, it says, it should be via a selection process and ballot process, as with all other elected members, the position on committees of council. The Mayor is an elected member of council and is entitled to nominate for any of these positions. So we're not doing anything different. We are just acknowledging that the Mayor can nominate and has that choice to nominate. He's not ex officio on every committee and then attends the committee because of that. So the reality of the situation is, I believe, that we need to endorse, indeed pass this resolution and move forward. I'm wondering, and I should have done a little bit more homework before I got to this meeting, to ask how many other councils in the state have their mayors as ex officio, because I have a feeling that there's not very many.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Would any other members like to speak on this motion? Councillor Jenkins?
I'm strongly speaking against it. If you go by Councillor Andrews' argument that the Mayor should be nominated and assigned to a committee, on one hand, however, he was saying on the other hand the Mayor shouldn't be on the committee even as an ex officio because they may be intimidated. Well, if the argument for being intimidating is on the means that the Mayor should be on the committee, then even if they're nominated on the committee by council, they're still going to be intimidating. So I think that cancels each other out. The other thing is that the Mayor is voted by the community. He's an elected member of the community, of the council. He can't vote at council meetings. He or she, whoever is Mayor, they are chairing the council meeting. But they are still an elected member. It's really important, if they are to support and to speak on behalf of the council, that they understand what is going on in the committee meetings, that they have input into that they're part of that debate, because as you know, as we all know, we listen to debate and we listen to each other and we may change our minds. We hear something new. We put our 2 cents worth in and somebody else might change their mind. For the Mayor, I think that's a really integral part of their job, is actually listening to the committee members. Councillor Marshall has argued before that independent committee members, independent community members, have too much of a say on committees. Now he's arguing that the Mayor has too much of a say on committees. I think there needs to be a balance there. I certainly don't support this. I think it's important for the Mayor to be part of that debate, part of the committee meetings. Committees cannot make decisions. The decisions come to council for council to make, and the Mayor is not part of that decision making at the end. So I think he needs to be really involved at the front end in order to know what the reasons why decisions are being made and what's going on.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Councillor Chigwin?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, well, certainly I will vote against this as well. I've served under 4 mayors in this council and they have all been all carried that position of ex officio and attended many meetings. And as Councillor Jenkins pointed out, the Mayor is elected by the community, not by the elected members. And I believe the community would be very happy to see that he's taken such an interest in the broad section of council, going to all these committee meetings and finding out as much as he can. I've never found him to be intimidating at any of the meetings that I've been at or chaired, and there's been times when if you're not able to chair the meeting, he is an elected member and able to chair the meeting for you.
Thank you, Councillor Chiglin. Would any other members like to speak to this motion? If not, Councillor Marshall, would you like to close debate?
Yes, I would. It's obviously the Mayor's elected by the community in this particular council and in most councils in South Australia. And the Mayor can't vote, and the Mayor's role is to preside over ceremonial duties and council meetings. As far as I'm concerned, the bottom line is that if the Mayor wants to be on every committee or wants to be on committees and wants to have plenty of say, then don't run for Mayor. Run as a councillor and be a council member rather than a Mayor. Then you can participate in virtually all the council discussions. The other issue too is that the text in the report is what talks about the possibility of the Mayor putting his hand up in his own right to be on committees. That wasn't what I said. That came from our staff. So it's understood that there is a mechanism there to put the Mayor on committees if he puts his hand up and if he gets voted on, same as other elected members. The reality of the matter is that if you've got 10 committees, the Mayor's not going to get on every committee, which he is now. He may get on one or two or three or something, but that means he only has an influence on 2 or 3 of those committees. And the reality of the whole situation is that people do feel intimidated and reluctant to go against the Mayor's views, and that's what's been conveyed to me. And so it's better that you only had that on 1 or 2 committees than the whole lot. As I said before, Councillor Jenkins talked about the Mayor listening. Well, the Mayor can listen just the same as anybody else can listen. He's just got to go and sit in the gallery. It doesn't preclude him from being involved in these meetings. It's just that he doesn't get a vote or get a part of the discussion. There was some alleged discrepancy in what I'd said, lack of consistency about Section 41 committees having non-elected members, and me not liking that. Well, that's true. I said that 50 times. And I've also said 50 times that I don't think there should be Section 41 committees in the first place. I've seen very little evidence of extreme of need for the so-called expertise from some of the people we've got elected on the committees. And the truth is, if you look at what these people claim to be on some of these committees, they claim to be that community representing business. They're not actually. They're representing other groups or themselves, and they don't necessarily have this expertise. So no one's bothered to check to see if their credentials are correct. And finally, once again, yes, it's true that committees can't actually make decisions, but they do take a vote, and they do come back to the council with a resolution. The council can choose to agree with it or not agree with it. But it's been my experience over the years in local government that as some of the committee members feel intimidated, also some council members feel intimidated when it comes to speaking against what the committees have decided, because a lot of these things are done by people who don't have the big picture in mind, or they're pushing a particular barrow. I know at the moment I've got offside with a couple of people in the community because I've spoken against what they're pushing themselves. So it's very difficult when you get committee minutes to actually vote against them and make the thing not happen, but that's the job of an elected member. Once again, I just say in closing that I don't really see why the Mayor gets more of a say on all these committees than any of the rest of us. And if he's concerned about not being able to debate things in council meetings, we know that he has plenty of say anyway, at times. If he's concerned about not having that ability to vote, well, don't run for Mayor. And also that, of course, we've seen numerous occasions recently where he's exercised a casting vote, which he's entitled to, and so it's not true that he never has a vote. So I just ask you to support this, because we've got to think of the people on the committees as well. If you're going to have the system, you've got to support them, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall, for closing debate. I'll now call that motion to a vote. All those in favour? And all those against? That motion is carried.
Can I have a division, please?
Certainly, Councillor Jenkins has called it a division. All those in favour, please stand. Those for the motion, Councillor Charles, Councillor Glasgow, Councillor Marshall, and Councillor Andrews. Those against, Councillor Chigwidden, Councillor Jenkins, and Councillor Dutton. That motion is carried.
This has been a South Coast Television production.